Hey, it's Tweeter's Digest, the coziest podcast on the internet. Episode 2, Cam Can Save the Tin Man. Cam, thanks for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, of course, Loopy. I'm very excited. Always a pleasure to get the chance to hang out and chat.
Yeah, very sweet. So before we get into the stuff, I really want to know, what have you been up to lately?
Oh God.
You can defer. It's fine.
So what I've been up to lately is, I guess, mostly work and then a conspicuous absence of work the past like 2 weeks. Actually, on Monday, I was so excited to go to work. I just have like a normal tech job, but I was like so tired of I don't know, sort of like meandering around my apartment in the snow because can't do anything right now. And I wrote my stand up, and I was like, oh, I'm like the first person to write my stand up at 10 a.m. Weird. And then the power was flickering, and I was like, oh, in the work chat, might not be here today, or might be on and off because the flickering power. I was feeling really on top of it, and I was like, it's weird that no one else is commenting anywhere. And then someone messaged me, my boss's boss, and was like, we don't have work today.
Like it was a company holiday, or?
Yeah, it was observed New Year's Day because yeah. So that's kind of been the vibe basically. Is just sort of itching to do something and not able to do anything. So this is actually great for that. And yeah, getting back into the gym, just sort of revving my life back up after the holidays, reading a lot more. So all that's really good.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Sweet.
Yeah.
Glad I can help you out here. All right, let's get into your tweets, man. So on November 9th, 2020, you tweeted, I was briefly low-level Tumblr famous as a teen for writing poetry and taking photos, and I learned so much about both crafts during that time period. I certainly at some point stopped doing it for the right reasons, but I didn't stop learning or having fun with either craft. Dude, low-level Tumblr famous. Tell me more.
Um, so I think when I was 17, which would be, I guess, 10 years ago. So 2011, I started writing a lot of poetry on Tumblr, and I guess just started connecting with the right people and getting involved in those circles. The way Tumblr used to work is that there were editors who manually edited each tag and selected posts to be featured. Um, and so I guess through a combination of knowing how to write really obnoxious but appealing to teens poetry, uh, and talking to the right people and befriending the right people, I became the most featured poet on Tumblr uh, during a 1 month time span. Um, and so that was pretty cool. And through the same sort of thing, started getting featured in the landscape and black and white photography tags, uh, and was a definitely by definition top trending Tumblr artist. But it certainly didn't feel that way. I don't know. It was a pretty small scene, I think. But yeah, that was what was up. I was really not doing it for the right reasons. So after my rise to I guess pseudo fame in the Tumblr poetry scene, I started getting a little jaded and started writing intentionally bad poetry that I didn't like. And it got more and more notes, which is the reblogs plus likes metric. Um and that just really sort of blackpilled me basically, because I was oh, I'm trying to be bad and people are still eating it up. So it's my art has no worth. My what I'm doing isn't really art even. It's just sort of pandering. And I deleted all the posts off my blog and became like an emo band like fan blog for like local hardcore bands in my area.
Wow. Um, that's incredible. Were these on a shared account? Like, were your photos and poetry? Do people know this was one person doing, both of these things?
Yeah, for sure. I was so obnoxious and like reading back, I found like some of my stuff on Internet Archive recently, like Wayback Machine. And the God, the way I used to talk was like so frustrating. There was like a whole section of time where like my bio was uh like libertarianism, chivalry, something, something.
Mm.
And I was just like very much like a type of guy, I feel like. Uh and I don't know, very like maybe not like I guess like very legible, like not as myself, but as something. Uh and I think now I'd kind of trend towards like not letting myself be as easily like put in a box and branded and like idealized. Because I definitely wasn't. I was playing a character who people liked. I was not like I didn't feel any connection to that character.
Yeah, especially I imagine when you were writing the bad poems and they
Yeah,
still blew up. Excuse me. I can imagine that was like super disheartening just to be inauthentic and still praised that way.
totally. I think during that time period, I started getting like fan mail
Whoa.
on Tumblr, but like large amounts. And it was just like a very weird experience because it was like very clearly not about me, you know? Like I was just some like I put out like some very basic information that was like kind of like countercultural in some sense uh about myself, and people like latched onto that really hard and ran with it. But it was like I think just realizing that it wasn't me that they were, talking to basically. Like you said, like writing bad poetry on purpose, like making my persona like ugly on purpose, and people like still like flocking to it. It's like, oh, like this isn't anything. This is just like almost like random chance that this is happening. Like, or either that or just like proof that I could game the system without actually knowing how to do anything real.
Hmm.
Um, and like that was like a discredit to myself, right? Because like clearly something was working, and I wish I'd been kinder to myself during that time period. Uh, but that was definitely how it felt at the time. Like I think advice to younger listeners would be don't go through and delete all your shit all the time, because like especially like creative output, you're gonna really want that later,
Hmm.
even though it feels really good to delete it.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine, especially as a teenager, uh, that sort of volatile fame acceleration, or quotes fame
Yeah.
acceleration. Trying to scorch earth it is a pretty reasonable response.
At least and like there's like a sense that when you're in that like hormone filled place, you're like, oh, like everything is temporary and I am forever. Like you're like, I will always feel this way. I will always have like this like crazy like artistic output that like I can just turn on if I want to. And that's like not necessarily true. Like it ebbs and flows. And I think like when you're like hormonally uh like saturated, it it comes out a lot faster. Um so I think like having a record of that time is really cool. And also understanding that like you should savor the times where you are able to produce a lot of work is like, I don't know, a valuable lesson. But what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I was just curious about the content or the themes, I guess consistent themes about these poems at the time.
So I don't know how like familiar you are with like bad poetry tropes. Like now there's like Ruby Car and stuff where it's like, anyone can sort of write like a self-contradictory like his lips were like honey, uh but his words like I don't know, like rose thorns or whatever. Like it's just like I feel like that's like bad poetry now. Um Not that all Ruby Car is bad, or the Ruby Car is bad for writing it. I think she's awesome as like a gateway into like other poetry. But um, I wrote like a lot of stuff about like drinking when I was 17 and hadn't drinking yet, and like rib cages and using the word darling a lot, and like cigarettes, and I don't know, just sort of like the teen fantasy of like being cool, or like what teens thought adults talked about, maybe.
Yeah, those are all very like teenage idealizations of, edgy adult activities.
Yeah, right. And there's like some element of like it's like it's all fantasy, right? And it's like things that it's like tropes that you know about through media and like through other people, but like mostly haven't engaged with yourself. Um, a lot about sex, a lot about like I don't know, heartbreak or like abusive situations, which like I hadn't experienced at that point in my life. Like just like a lot of a lot of nonsense. Like uh and I just knew how to like pattern match the words together and not really like create any meaningful story out of it. Because I didn't know what I was talking about, but I was able to like make it sound like there should be something there even though there wasn't. Um, and I think other kids saw that and was like, ah, like I feel smart reading this because it has like all these like ideas in it that I also think about. And going back, it's like, oh, this like there's no content here. Like there's no like story, there's no like themes really. It's just kind of like this like aesthetic being hammered into your brain when you read these like old poems. So yeah, that's like kind of what the vibe was generally. Just like very forlorn, very like sometimes sultry, like a red velvet room, basically.
Yeah, I really just love the imagining like whatever 17-year-old Cam, you know, writing all these sultry lines. Um, what was there a common like how do I phrase this, like the meter or the structure of the poems, like the type? I'm not sure how to word that.
It was mostly free verse, because I don't know, I was like I so the thing that changed as I wrote more poetry and as I got older is that I read more poetry. I like read almost zero poetry when I was a kid. I was just writing. So I was like kind of writing about what my idea of poetry was. Um, and I don't know if this is like a typical experience for people in my position, but there was definitely like I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of like writing words in lines. And like I when I say I didn't know what I was doing, I think I mean that I didn't want to write like anyone else. Which is funny because I was writing like everybody else, but like I was, I think, really averse to like any kind of regular rhythm or meter or form because it felt like inauthentic somehow. Um, and I don't know, maybe that's part of being a kid, maybe that's part of like not having written much, maybe both. But I definitely really disliked the constraints instead of kind of like enjoying them. And I think I felt that way in large parts of my life, where it was like, even though now that I know like constraints create, opportunities for creativity, that was like the opposite impression I had then.
In what other domains did you feel that way at the time?
I think just like in general, sort of like as a life outlook, I think it's something that I've like recently started shifting my views on. Like I find it really easy to want to like maximize future possibilities, like possibility space. Um, I was actually kind of talking about this recently with a friend, and we were talking about how like men's fashion and like the differences between like or like typical men's and women's fashion, right? So like with women's fashion, there's like a very, very large possibility space. And so like any of the ways that you like express yourself are like more like more obvious. Like it's like, oh, I'm choosing to wear like this cut or like this garment, right? Like there's like a higher level that's like easy to look at and be like, oh, this is like a choice. Whereas like men's fashion, it's like the high level stuff is pretty constrained. You like there aren't very many options of like tops to wear. There's like what, 4 maybe. Uh, and then like for like pants or like bottoms, it's like even smaller. It's like 2, 3 maybe, like not many. And so what you look for when you like think about fashion in those spaces is like it's like way more like particular in men's fashion. It's like way more about like finer details, like this like sense of like mastery, I guess, of like is this like is this collar laying perfectly flat or is it like slightly disheveled or like is and what texture is the tie? Like, and these are all things that exist in women's fashion too. It's just like I think that the eye gets drawn to them more in men's fashion because there's nothing more obvious to look at or think about. Um, and I think that like as a kid, I thought that like the only way to express yourself or like find optionality or like freedom in life was to like look at like these sort of macro level decisions. Um, and as I got older, I realized, or am realizing, I guess, that there's like a lot of beauty to be found in like making the small decisions in your life. Uh, and a lot of like space to exert your own influence in those uh, that can really like help you cultivate something cool, but also like dramatically shape how things turn out for yourself. Like you could, be in. It's like choosing which partner you have versus choosing how you interact with that partner, right? There's like some like macro level decision, and then there's like some like sense of like mastery of like creating something with that person and like like honing in on like the individual interactions with them.
Are there areas in which you've enjoyed these small decisions lately?
Um, it's a good question. I think I've stopped trying to make new friends as much, and I've started investing a lot more into the friendships I already have. I went through this period. I mean, I think it's probably like a quarantine symptom, but like early on in my time on Twitter, I was working really, really hard to like meet people. I like desperately wanted to meet someone besides like the 4 people who lived in my house, uh, who were like all my best friends, but which was awesome. But it definitely felt like kind of claustrophobic, and so um, was just like rapidly trying to like cold DM people and set up video chats and stuff. And I think now I'm sort of realizing that like I had the capacity for the friendship I wanted all along. Not that I'm not trying to meet people, like hit me up, like anyone listening. But it's not like as urgent as it was. I find that making time for the people already in my life has been like a very fruitful experience. There's like some study about how people who experience I'm trying to think of like how the study was like done, but basically they had a whole bunch of people watch a movie and then they had a whole that they hadn't seen and a whole bunch of people watch a movie that they had seen already. And they like got them to like rate their enjoyment levels and stuff. And the people who were re-experiencing some piece of media had like much higher enjoyment levels, or at least statistically significantly higher. Um, and I don't know, I think about that like study a lot just because I think that like I don't know, I'm someone with ADHD. I think people with like that sort of like brain chemistry at least tend to like crave novelty a lot, even if that's not necessarily what is best for them or like what is most rewarding long term. Um, and so I think like moving in the direction of, I don't know, like I guess it's like mindfulness, right? It's like sitting with what you have instead of being like impelled towards the newest, greatest thing. Uh, and my friendships have like blossomed a lot because of that. I've gained like a lot of self-love too. It's been nice.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. That makes me think of the idea that even for an ADHD brain, there's a lot of novelty to be had in existing friendships, just exploring different contexts or conversation topics or experiences with the same people unlocks forms of novelty, even with a very familiar friend, I think.
Totally. Yeah. There is this Ribbon Farm article that actually I read like a decade ago before I read Ribbon Farm or knew what post rats were or whatever. called The Tragedy of Weo's Law, I think. Um, and the concept is that we kind of put people, like basically we put people in boxes. We enter like social contracts with people. This is my friend who I only watch movies with, or only talk about sports with, or this is my work friend and we just complain about work together and get beers after. And the idea that like Venkatesh explores in this blog post is that there's something called like a game break, which is where the social game falls away and you like fully recognize the other person as a full person. Uh, and it's like the sort of like wondrous moment, right? Because like very rarely do we let ourselves experience other people as full people. And the titular like tragedy of Weo's Law is that you can't sustain a game break. Like it eventually you can't constantly view other people as full people just because like our brains aren't like capable of doing that basically. Um, and like obviously you logically know they're full people, but I think like you can't subconsciously treat everyone like a person of infinite depth all the time. Um, and I don't know. I think that like you're saying, like changing your social contracts with people you already know is like almost the same as meeting someone new, right? Like you're meeting a new person kind of versus the person you thought you knew. Yeah, and then you get to have like hang out with two friends instead of one every time you hang out with that person. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad you've gotten a lot out of exploring these depths of friendships instead of prioritizing breadth.
Is this your first podcast episode? Can I ask you questions?
I'm afraid not. I'm still exploring it all. We'll see.
Heard.
But let's move on to your next tweet.
Okay, yeah.
On January 8th, 2021, you tweeted, 2021 is the year where I let myself focus on being hot. 2021's over.
It is over.
How'd it go?
I think it went pretty well. I think for the majority of the year, I felt really great about myself and like my body and who I was. And I don't think much materially changed about myself. Actually, that's not true. I lost like a lot of weight and gained a lot of muscle, but uh, I think that like that's like almost incidental to like the feeling of hotness, right? Like I think the thing that made me feel good about myself was lifting. Um, and I don't think it had anything to do with the way I actually looked. I think that it just like there's the meme of like does it lift big rock, make brain empty or whatever, make brain quiet. Uh, that's definitely what it was. It was just the sense of like I felt so confident about who I was and who I was becoming while I was lifting. And not all the time, obviously. Like there were moments of doubt and anxiety and stuff, but there's like this sense that like you just feel very capable. Um, and that was a really cool feeling. I felt like my brain was working with me instead of against me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it was awesome. I definitely feel like in general 2021 was like the year of being hot for sure. And hopefully, God willing, that continues into 2022. Um, but I guess two other things. A, I realize a lot of my self-worth is like caught up in my appearance, which I would like to work on. That seems like very, it seems like fine for now, but bad for the future because like, you know, bodies change, people visually change, and understanding that like that doesn't mean you become worse seems like a really valuable project. I'm sure like everyone who's like even a little bit older than me is like laughing at me right now. But I don't know. I think it's like easy to anchor your self-worth to like things about you that are like obvious in big scare quotes. Uh, or that like can be seen by other people also again in big scare quotes. Just because like I don't know, I guess that's it. But yeah, I think that like lifting these past few months, I haven't been able to go to the gym for various reasons, largely because of vacation, and I am very excited to go back. Not because I think it'll do anything to my physical form or change the way I look, but because I think that it'll just make me feel uh, much more like secure in my body again, which will be cool.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the mental gains from lifting have been a bigger benefit to you than the physical changes.
Yeah, it's like, you know that meme where it's like, where do you lift? And it's like the guy with the huge forehead and he's like the library or whatever.
Yeah,
It's
I've
like
seen
that,
that.
but it's like the guy with the huge head is saying the gym.
It's kind of like an anti meme or
Yeah, yeah, for
reversing the
sure.
reversal.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, not that the physical lifting itself hasn't paid off. I mean, I saw your Oscar Isaac Halloween costume
oh,
picture.
thank you.
I saw that and I was like,
Daddy, chill.
uh, how many of these did you prepare ahead of time? The sound clips. You know what? Never mind. Don't answer. Yeah.
who's to say? Yeah, I didn't mean to cut off conversational avenues earlier. You can ask me questions, but the focus is you. You are the one, Neo. What's your favorite lift?
My favorite lift is I think it's squat, which I know is controversial. A lot of people hate leg day, or at least it's like memed into being something that people hate. But I don't with deadlift, I feel like there are so many variables that can like get fucked up in terms of me not completing the lift, uh like grip strength or like me not executing smoothly or like I don't know, it feels like there's like a lot of like points of failure with squat as long as like having good form is required for being able to lift the weight up basically. Um and there's just like such a sense of like full body exertion. There's also a sense that like with a squat, I don't. It feels like a positive movement instead of a negative movement. I don't really know how to explain that. I feel like I'm like pushing something up towards the heavens instead of like lifting it back up to like where it should be. Like I feel like I'm creating progress instead of undoing somebody else's regress. I feel like after I do my first squat set, I'm like really energized, which always catches me by surprise. I like talked to my gym buddy Sam about this, but it's like I want to like fucking tackle someone after my first squat set, just like run and lunge at them. And after the second one, I feel awful again, and I'm like tired as fuck. But that first one just like fires me up so much, and that's like a feeling that never ever gets old. It's great.
Mm-hmm. To me, this isn't a bad thing at all. Squats kind of remind me of like maybe vanilla ice cream, like it is the
Mm,
most popular, the fan, the classic, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, I love bench press.
What do you like about bench press?
It's just kind of pointless.
That rules. Yeah.
I've tweeted
Fuck
about
yeah.
that before. There's not really much real world use case for that position and that movement.
Hmm.
Yeah. I also want to know, like, are there other things you've done last year in 2021, that you would say might contribute to your growing hotness, like just things you accomplished or things you pursued?
Ooh. There were definitely things I did that just like felt really good. For parts of last year, I had like a really strong morning and bedtime routine, and that was definitely huge for me. As someone who's really bad at building routine, that was like total game changer. I went to a sauna for the first time, uh, and that was sick. Highly, highly recommend if you have like a little bit of spare coin. It was it was great. I just like be having to be somewhere for an hour without your phone is like honestly just amazing. Um, and obviously the sauna feels great too. Uh, but I think it's just like the sensation of having to sit with yourself and also you don't have any choice but to sit with yourself and also you're being blasted by this like beautiful heat is really cool. So like that was great and also just like felt like self-care and like the sort of like commodified sense where it's like, oh, like I'm practicing self-care. But also like I was practicing self-care in another sense too. Besides those things, I had like a facial routine for a while. That was pretty cool. Um, again, just for like self-care vibes, but like started using I don't know, like moisturizer and like sunscreen regularly and face cleansing and stuff like that. I think just like interacting with your body like it is something that should be loved instead of like ignored or disliked is I think a very powerful thing, whatever that looks like.
Hmm. Yeah, just kind of like generally being in an alliance with yourself and your body instead of fighting it or acting against it.
Yeah, like I have an avoidant attachment style in general, and I think that shows up in my relationship with my body too.
Wow. Whoa. Oof, that's heavy.
I wonder how much that generalizes. Like, I wonder if people with anxious attachment styles find themselves like having anxious internal relationships as well.
Yeah, fascinating. I know there's a common sentiment that some people just would prefer not to have a body at all, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely see that on Twitter a lot. Like, why can't I just be like a sparkling ether of like of energy?
Yeah, and like, don't perceive me.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That is like, huh. What do you think about that?
um, I don't know. I don't really want to speak for other people's, preferences and thoughts about their own bodies. So,
Sure, that makes sense.
yeah, I just encourage people to be kind to themselves and their bodies and accept themselves as they are.
Totally.
Yeah, I'm curious. What are there any like trends or developments, new things into 2022 now you're pursuing to continue your climb, your endless acceleration leap into greater and greater hotness?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, uh, I'm like imagining like a paperclip simulator, but for like hotness now. Like just a maximally hot person. I think that I think exercising regularly, like lifting for like the mood boosting benefits, and I don't know. I feel like it's like all the boring things like exercise the proper amount, meditate, uh, develop healthy relationships with others and yourself. Um, because like something I've noticed is like my appearance like very rarely changes, but like my feelings about my appearance do, as I'm sure everyone with a body has like probably noticed to some degree. Um, and so like obviously like if you think about that for like a second, it's like you can't really do much to change your appearance overall, but you can do a lot to change how you feel about yourself or like to change what your base mood is. Um, and I think if you feel comfortable in yourself, like obviously, even if we're talking about strictly like uh hotness as in like ability to attract others, like that's huge, right? Like being comfortable with yourself is like the key. So yeah, I think just like mental hygiene stuff is like the biggest thing for me right now. Um I think taking mm, more art in 2022 compared to 2021. I started painting in 2021 and really enjoyed that as like a mode of like journaling. Um and I would like to continue that into 2022. It is very gratifying to look at things I made and be like, oh yeah, like that's how I was feeling and I made that. And like, I don't know, that's just like really nice. I also think letting myself enjoy my accomplishments is like the other big thing instead of just being anxious about the things I haven't accomplished.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
It's hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you mentioned the sort of these mundane activities to increasing your hotness. But that's the thing. Like, plenty of people are resistant to any sort of boring routine type stuff. But those are the things that help you take care of yourself and increase your hotness in different ways. So it's just like a
Totally.
willingness to suffer, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. Oh, totally. There was this quote, or not quote, but like this I was like listening to this like psychiatrist talk recently, and he mentioned something about how like life isn't supposed to be fun, life isn't supposed to be anything. Um, and I don't know, that really stuck with me as like it was like very relaxing to hear. Like took the pressure off kind of. It's like, oh, I'm not, it's not like I'm when I'm sad, it's not like I have to like blame myself for being sad also. It's like I can just like write it out and have like good meta feelings about it. Um, and I think like being at ease with yourself in that way is like so valuable and also permits you to do things that are more boring uh, or like less immediately interesting or less immediately fruitful.
Hmm. Is that psychiatrist? Is that the healthy gamer
It is,
GG guy?
yeah.
Okay, I didn't get a tweet on this from you, but I saw you discuss him a few times. I guess you want to like mention, what is appealing about him to you, like what, as far as his messages and everything.
Totally. So in terms of what's appealing, I think immediately he has a very his tone is very no nonsense while also being like playful, if that makes sense. He's like there's like a gentleness and a sternness in the way he talks about things that I find very appealing. And basically his whole shtick is that he is a this guy who started going to school, dropped out because he like failed at every single one of his classes, and then uh, studied, I guess, like at a monastery for 7 years, uh, and like practiced like meditation through different traditions, and then came back to the U.S., went to medical school, graduated, then went to Harvard Business School, graduated, and now instead of like having a practice, just streams full time on Twitch uh, and coaches. So he like runs a coaching business basically. Can't technically call it like a therapy clinic because the people he hires are not trained therapists or
Mm-hmm.
not licensed therapists, but it all has this like kind of vibe of like a scheme or like a scam a little bit if you like describe it. Not but like I'm saying like if I'm like telling someone about it, I'm always like kind of wary of how it sounds. Uh but basically he draws on like Ayurvedic principles along with like neurobiology and like clinical psychology. Um and then also presents everything through the lens of someone who's played a lot of video games. Um, so it's kind of like everything is like very clearly. I always forget the word for this. Um, it's like when you break something down into its like component goals. Um, but everything is like very clearly like delineated and like placed along like a path of progression, basically.
Very
Uh,
gamer friendly.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's not much effort that has to be expended figuring out how to navigate his content, which I think is very useful for people who have spent large parts of their lives being hand-fed like quest objectives, uh, me included, for sure. Um, but yeah, I like he does a good job of like tying in like if he's like talking to someone with like ADHD, it's like the things he goes through are like oh like basically like uh it's really helpful to like for some people to like close your eyes or to like focus on like a point in middle distance when you're listening to someone because it like helps like calm your mind a little bit. And then he's like uh we'll ask a follow-up question of like what does your stool look like and then talk about gut health and how that relates in modern psychiatric research and in Ayurvedic medicine to like brain chemistry basically. uh and talks about how like certain diets that cultivate certain gut biomes uh, help the brain or hurt the brain in certain ways. So I don't know. It's just like a very nice blend of a lot of things that felt kind of disparate before for me. I was
Mm-hmm.
really interested in meditation and like traditional medicine of various types, and was a cognitive science guy in college. So feeling all that tie in is like very gratifying, and the presentation is like very well done. But yeah, he rules. He has like a lot of very accessible videos, both of like case studies and interviews with like incels or like former neo-Nazis or whatever, or like um just like vast swaths of humanity. Uh and then has like a lot of videos that are about like abstract topics instead of people. So it's like a fun combination of theory and practice.
Yeah, sounds like a great guy to listen to. Like, again, that's Healthy Gamer GG.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right. Let's get into your next tweet. They don't stop. On January 24th, 2021, you tweeted, if your tweet blew up, what would you advertise/promo in the replies? For me, give well, most important lessons from therapy, vaccination locator phone banking efforts, some cool 15-second YouTube video I found. Yeah, so I'd love to just like get into each of the things you listed. What is GiveWell?
Yeah, I love this. So when I was younger, I like in starting college, I guess, I had the urge to like give something back to my community, but I never had a good sense of how useful it would be. It's like I could give to like, I don't know, this organization. Like if I give to like a soup kitchen or something, like I always had the sense that like there's a better use. Like if I spent the same amount of money in terms of like philanthropy, I could get like a much bigger result somewhere else. And so I started looking around and for people who are working on this, or like if there was any data about this. And I found like Charity Navigator and stuff, which are like, it was like helpful. But then I found like the super powered version of Charity Navigator, which is GiveWell. Uh, GiveWell basically looks for how to reduce the most suffering per dollar among the human population. And they are incredibly epistemically sound in a way that's like almost frustrating because it's so good. They have like a whole tab on their website dedicated to their mistakes that they've made over the years and like miscalculations. But they devote like tens of thousands of hours a year to researching and writing white papers that are like about decades long longitudinal studies that they mostly perform themselves. And basically find like these like really low cost, high efficacy interventions that can just like dramatically improve people's lives in a way that's like kind of astounding. You can prevent like dozens of people from going blind for like a few dollars. Like it's just like weird things like that. Or like, you can, if there's like a school that has a lot of like a parasitic worm infestation, you can like deworm that school for like, I think it's like under $1,000. But then that increases that town's economic growth by like 10% year over year or something insane. Like there's all these like wild things you can do where because of the internet and like global networks, you are now able to do in a way that you couldn't before. Where you can sort of leverage the fact that you live in like a developed nation and for like mere like pennies, like literally pennies on the dollar, help out other people in other places. And I guess like that's all really like it relies on the worldview that like everyone's life is equally important, which is something that I think is true. I recognize not everyone does, and that's like totally reasonable too. But I think if you start there, then like GiveWell is a very obvious place to end up. Yeah, big fan of GiveWell, big fan of the work they do. I would consider myself an effective altruist, which is like the movement kind of built around that, to put it lightly. Yeah, it seems like it's the least I can do as someone who like lucked out in a lot of areas of my life, like very intensely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Curious, so when you give to GiveWell, is there any further specification of it's like cause areas or just a general, they'll take care of it once you give to them?
It's like straight up to you. So in the sense that like either of those things can be true. You can give to specific areas that they recommend through their website. Like you can, like, donate malaria, like or anti-malaria mosquito nets, or participate in deworming initiatives, all that stuff through their site. Or you can donate to their discretionary fund, which they will use to give to the organization that has the most capacity to take in new money. I usually just do that because like they have a full-time staff of researchers dedicated to that problem, and I'm just a guy. And I trust them a lot more than I trust me to figure that stuff out.
Yeah, that's great because I know some people who are, financially blessed, often kind of like analysis paralysis as far as like where to focus their money because they're like, oh, I could do this much good. What if I can do more good over here and even more good over there?
Oh my God, yeah. It was like kind of a scary thought as someone who's like trying to give, right? Like you want to make sure that like you're not wasting your money in a sense by like giving it away. And this definitely solves that hesitation for me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay. Most important lessons from therapy.
Oh God, I'm sure I was thinking about something specific at the time and I'm like super not now, but I think they would include one of the ways to most drastically improve your life is increase the amount of time between stimulus and response, especially in interpersonal relationships, but also in general, where you let yourself take a second to think about something before you have like an immediate reaction. Not to say like don't trust your gut reaction, which like that's like incredibly valuable information. But if someone says something to you and it triggers you, like someone's like, "Hey, can you like I would appreciate it if you like did the dishes more." Instead of like freaking out at them or like getting really defensive and be like, "I do the dishes a whole bunch." Like just like think about like why they're saying it, what's going through their head. Like um even if like it doesn't change your mind about it, I think it makes you way happier or like way less upset about the interaction. Uh, so like building in time to like actually ingest the information you're given before letting like your like feral body take over completely, I think is like very valuable. Um, Understanding that like not everything is good or bad in the way that you think it is would be another one. I guess that's maybe like more Zen, but definitely something I've like talked about in therapy before. Um, there's the parable of the farmer, I think, which like you're nodding in agreement, but the very short version is like some guy has a farm, and or he has like a horse or something, and the horse runs away, and everyone else in the village is like, "Oh shit, dude! Like you lost your horse. That sucks." And he's like, "I don't know, maybe. Like we'll see." And the horse comes back with like five other horses. So now he has like a ranch, and then like uh, everyone's like, "Oh, dude, you like got a lot of horses. That's sick." And he's like, "Ah, maybe. Like who knows?" And then one of the new horses like breaks his son's leg, and everyone's like, "Oh, dude, like your son's leg broke. That fucking sucks." And he's like, "Maybe." And then the rest of the town gets like conscripted into the army during a war, and his son doesn't because his leg is broken, and everyone else dies and his son doesn't. All the other like kids do. And anyway, it continues this way forever, basically. But there's like a sense that like you don't really know what kind of outcomes things will have, or at least like you should be open to the possibility that things will have outcomes that are not what you expect. Because like from like a Bayesian perspective, like obviously you can have some sense of like hopefully your priors are like not the worst, but they're probably worse than you think they are for like a lot of emotionally charged events. And that was really helpful.
Yeah, I love that parable. I also love your creative flair with words like dude and sick. I don't think that was in the original text.
I don't know. I think if you go back and read it, you'd be surprised. A lot
Oh,
of
okay. Let's give a more careful reading.
yeah.
Yeah, I love your mention of the stimulus response gap as well. I hope I'm getting this right. I think Man's Search for Meaning digs in on that a lot as well. Basically about a Holocaust survivor who, I hope this is the right reference for this, but he discusses how he was able to, in part survive because he was able to, put big gaps between his response to, terrible events. I hope that's the right book. I don't actually remember for sure. Been a while since I've read it. But yeah, that's such a important lesson. Glad that was one of your big therapy takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like compressibility as like an idea, I think those two are very high on the list. Definitely, and that was the right book, by the way. After a quick Google.
Thank you for live fact checking me. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
for sure. I wonder what other. I'd be curious to hear what other people said for that answer. Like most important lessons that they've learned that they're like therapy adjacent, whether they're from therapy specifically or not.
I'll seek out people who have gone to therapy.
I'm sure that'll make everyone in the post-strat circle really happy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Vaccination locator phone banking efforts.
I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it was a product at the time, right? The guy who was like the CTO of Stripe or whatever made this website called Vaccinate CA that was basically like a very glorified and well automated Excel spreadsheet that was like shared between thousands of people. I don't know. It seemed to do like a lot of work to get a lot more people vaccinated who wouldn't have been otherwise or as quickly. Obviously, like time changes the way we think about things. I think it's like way less salient now, way less relevant now as like companies have or like groups of people have created similar things on larger scales. There's like a government version now. It might just be like vaccinate.gov or something. But at the time, like the government's response was just abysmally slow to like providing resources for stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a lot of people had a lot of time on their hands because a lot of people had been like laid off or were just stuck at home. And I think it was really cool as like a way of sort of giving your day like some feeling of like meaning or like greater satisfaction, and also providing some good to the world in like a low effort way. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's like too much to say about it. It was it was topical.
Yeah, yeah, definitely more salient a year ago than now. Like the bottleneck now is not locating vaccines, I don't think, at least in the
Right.
US. Yeah, cool. Some cool 15-second YouTube video I found.
Oh boy. One of the greatest returns on investment you can have on this life is just like a 15-second shitposty YouTube video. They exist in very, very large quantities. I don't know how you would search for them. I like it because it's like TikTok, except you're not stuck in TikTok afterwards when the video finishes. Uh, this is before YouTube Shorts, I guess. Uh, but have you heard of like YouTube haikus?
I haven't.
Okay, a YouTube haiku was pre-TikTok, pre-Vine, pre all this stuff. And it was like a 15 to 30-second YouTube video. It was a subreddit for these. And it was basically all these just like immaculately dense and funny YouTube videos. And you could eat like 20 of them in, a 15-minute time period. Uh, and yeah, it's great. But now I think that like that whole concept has been commodified so intensely that it's almost lost all of its inherent value. But I still think if you are to engage in that behavior, like clicking on videos in your YouTube recommended list is like the way to do it, because then you're not like immediately shoved into the next video by corporate overlords.
Is there any like memorable video you remember from all your haikuing?
There's one video of it's like not even that funny at this point. I don't even know if I could find it. Never mind. I'm not even going to describe it. Pretend it's really funny. Just like think of like the best possible 15-second video that you can imagine, and like that's what I'm about to describe. But incredible. Yeah, I think there's like something to be said, especially if you're like hanging out with roommates or something, where it's like you want to enjoy something together and have like a quick fun moment. And being able to spend 15 seconds to get a laugh together is like a really good investment. I don't even know if I would enjoy them as much alone, but like back when I lived with roommates, just like if we're like scrolling YouTube to watch something together and there's like a video under 30 seconds, like we will watch it, right? Like you gotta, because like the investment is so small. In a similar vein, I used to stay up till like 2 a.m. with one of my roommates watching 1 minute physics videos. Because you watch it, you're like, I can watch another one. It's just like a minute long. Like there's no downside. um, maybe that's what I would recommend. Maybe I'd recommend people check out 1 minute physics if there's something they want to see. If they want to engage in some short content, because I feel like those are very, very well done.
Sweet. Yeah, so you tweeted that about a year ago. Is there anything new you would advertise or promo in the reply of a viral tweet?
I think I would boost my friends more. I think I would link to friends' accounts on Twitter who are doing cool things. I think I would link to non-Twitter efforts that friends of mine are spearheading, like in my community or online in general. I think I would link to like my friends' portfolios online, like job or like portfolios or like resumes and stuff. I don't know. I definitely get the sense that like I derive a lot more of my self-worth from the people I'm around now and from the connections I've made than I did before. And I think that's because I live alone now, like straight up. I think that's like the shift that happened. What about you? What would you put beneath the viral tweet?
I don't think I would. To me, sort of capitalizing on some accidental, algorithm luck blow up thing that wasn't fully under your control. This is my opinions, like kind of like cheap. I would give more credibility to something someone's promoting if they just, tweeted it out. Didn't just throw it on a randomly accidental banger tweet. To me, that would give whatever they're promoting more credibility. But that's just me.
No, I feel the impulse. Like I get that sense too. Yeah. I think I would stick to my answer, but I see where you're coming from very strongly.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's universally the right sort of answer.
Ooh, you know what I would I would actually promote, like, I would make a Minecraft server and then promote that server. Because then you get everyone who's clicked on it in the same room, like leaking their subconscious all over the map, right? Like people are just like creating shit to like in some sense represents who they are. And it's just like I feel like there should be like more Minecraft servers for like random groups of people. Like at the bottom of like the Nielsen survey, there should be like a Minecraft server link.
It'd be
It's
incredibly
like different
popular.
kinds of people. Yeah.
All right, let's go on to your next tweet.
Oh my God.
On February 18th, 2021, you tweeted, "One of the cool things about ADHD is you introduce yourself to tons of ideas and cool stuff on a regular basis. One of the annoying things is once you find really helpful ideas / stuff, it's hard to consistently enact them in your own life. Tell me more."
I think that holds up. It feels very true still. This is the first tweet where I'm like, I still resonate with that. All the other tweets were like, I had a sense where I was like, oh, like past me wrote that. Um, and this is the first one where it's like, it still feels like hyper relevant to my life. I think that, let me think about this for a second.
Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh no. I'm not even hungry. I'm not even hungry.
That's pretty impressive. Loopy's blushing a little bit for the audience. Yeah, I think that like I think it's just sort of like true. I think that there will always okay, actually what I'll say is this. I tried stimulants since then. I was prescribed Wellbutrin and ended up taking Wellbutrin for a while, which is like a very mild stimulant, mostly used to treat depression and smoking addiction, but also used for ADHD. I think that there are probably natural interventions like regular meditation that I guess like what I'm trying to say is that if you improve your focus and improve your impulse control, you will still be dragged in interesting directions, but you're able to focus more on any specific thing. Like I think that if you something I was always worried about is like if I lost quote unquote lost my ADHD, would I like quote unquote lose my ability to discover interesting things and connect different ideas and go off in interesting directions? And at least in my experience, the answer is a definitive no. I did not lose those things when my focus improved. I still had the drive towards novelty. I was just better able to control it when I wanted to. And I think there are a lot of times where it's easy to think about like, or easy to be drawn to the idea that like, oh, you know, people like suffer for their art and like, you know, should I cure my depression or should I make good paintings or whatever? And I think that's like somewhat true for a lot of things. I think that like, unfortunately, there is a bit of a trade-off there that's like kind of undeniable. But I think for like ADHD specifically, like you won't lose any of the things that make you like make your brain wiring like unique or interesting, or you won't lose your ability to have interesting thoughts, or can like synthesize different ideas if you like do things to improve your focus. And that was kind of cool for me. It was like kind of like a white pill moment. It was like oh, like I can, even though I'm not taking Wellbutrin anymore, realizing that I could do things to improve my focus wouldn't like get in the way of me discovering cool things. In general, I think that, what do I think? I feel so put on the spot. It's kind of like exhilarating, but also kind of intense and frustrating. I give me a second. You can just cut out this part. Or you're probably not editing the podcast, huh? Incredible. Okay, okay. I better understand what's going on now. I just kind of assumed that like you would edit it, and now I'm like realizing that's off the table. That's great. Uh, this rules. Uh,
Don't tell me what I'm going to do or not do.
yes, sir. Um, I think that there are different solutions to that problem. I think that you can improve your focus, or you can kind of create. So like, I think there are two things. One is like you can kind of improve your focus a little bit, and you can improve it a lot through medication. You can probably improve it a lot through meditation. You will still be drawn to different things, and so I think this other bit of like advice holds true in either situation. Um, you can have like a lot of things going on in your life and cycle between them when you get bored. At some point, you're going to hit a saturation point where you have enough things going on that are all interesting to you, where one of them will always feel novel just because you've like left it behind for 6 months or something. Um, and I think allowing yourself to have a lot of like be juggling a lot of things at one time is actually really healthy for people with ADHD because it enables them to get things done and not be anxious about the fact that they aren't getting things done or aren't doing things they're not interested in, and also still allows them to have their own experience, like have like seek novelty a little bit in some sense, um, and engage with that part of their brain and not try to like shut it off or like condemn it. I think that like I don't know. I think that's really cool that you can sort of like have your cake and eat it too in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are you familiar with the idea of productive procrastination?
Uh, no, but the name might give some of it away.
Yeah, it's basically what you described. You get bored of one thing you ought to do or want to do, then you switch to something else that you ought/want to do. All you need is two, or that's the minimum to just cycle back and forth between them forever. And, even more is better.
Totally. And I will say also that there's a sense that like I think it's easy as someone with ADHD to be like, and this is probably true for other things too. I'm just speaking from my own experience, but uh, it's very easy to think that the reason you can't do something is because you're bad at focusing. And the case might be that you just don't enjoy it, like fundamentally.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, really valuable to understand the difference there. I felt that at jobs before, where it's like, oh, I can focus on like literally anything except for my job. Like, I wish I didn't have ADHD, like blah blah blah. And it's like, no, it's like that wasn't related to ADHD at all. That was just like me not having a good time, like me actively disliking the thing that I was doing, um, and not being able to pick up on that signal.
What are the different things you're currently juggling then?
I am working on getting some of my photography printed for the first time, uh, which is involving a lot of very, very careful editing and communicating with like my local printer and stuff, um, which is super fun. Uh, I am like working on writing some essays. Um, I am working on work, of course, and then I am also doing a machine learning class, like intro to machine learning, and that's going really well. Uh, yeah, reading a whole bunch of different books. Yeah, I think I'm like, and then getting back into lifting too. Um, and then hanging out with friends and just like doing nothing with them and shooting the shit. And I think like I feel like I'm hitting the saturation point in a really nice way where like I definitely can just be doing one of those things all the time. Uh, and that's great.
Are you able to individually focus on each of those whenever you get into each activity?
When I'm in the activity, I can focus pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
There's not really like a sense that I'm like, I mean, I'm choosing what to do in some sense, but there's also like, it's like motivated by an urge to do it. So I'm kind of like along for the ride a little bit in the sense that I've like chosen all the things that I want to be along in the ride for. Like I have sort of chosen the activities that I'm doing in general on average. Uh, so yeah, it's going really well.
Yeah, that's great. For the printed photography, is that just to hang up on your walls, to give to friends? What's going to happen with
Yeah.
those?
So I took a trip to Iceland with my mom and stepdad, and I think it was like a really impact. I mean, it was a great trip for me too, but I think it was also a really impactful trip for them. Um, like my stepdad doesn't get much vacation time, and my mom hasn't been outside the U.S. in a very, very, very long time. So like I have like a whole bunch of pictures from that trip, and I really want to like get them matted and framed and like really like put together into a nice package as like a gift for them. Yeah. And also I want to like fill my house with more art that is of my creation. I think it's like probably the cheapest way to buy art is to buy your own art.
Depends on how much you charge yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Were you in Iceland when you came across the world's hottest take, trees are aesthetically bad?
Yes, that was the place that inspired that take. The funny thing is, I didn't really believe it then, but I believe it more now. It's probably like just the contrarian in me, but I definitely, yeah, yeah. I was surprised by how much disgust and discussion that produced. Uh, what was your reaction to that?
I disagree, Cam.
Yeah.
Come on.
So I grew up in swamps my whole life. I like live in like not like fun swamps, but just like shitty wet woods. And for large parts of the year, it's just like the ground is always like dead leaves, no matter what time of year it is. And I just like never have really seen anything besides that. I've never spent any time in any like deserts or like plains or really anywhere else. I guess I should just like come down and visit Austin or something. But yeah, I was like very, very like taken back by this like brutalist, beautiful, like rolling landscape. And like how much of the landscape you could see also, both in terms of like distance and topography. When there's like trees everywhere, it's like you just kind of see the trees. You don't really see what's beneath them. Um, so getting to see like, I don't know, like little cliffs and like rocky outcroppings and like all, all this stuff was very, very neat to me. And it was, yeah, extremely new to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to your credit, I can imagine the beauty of the land of Iceland contributing to a valid, maybe anti-tree take.
This is, I would say, exclusive content for this podcast, but I saw some trees in Iceland too, and I liked those just as much, if not more.
Whoa!
Uh,
Describe these trees.
I think it was just like a non-East Coast forest that is probably in large parts of the world. But I think what I just didn't like was the same exact kind of like East Coast forest. Um, I don't know how common that experience is of like growing up somewhere and only seeing that one biome for like the majority of your life. Uh, but I imagine if I grew up like in Arizona or something, I would be like, trees are good and everything else sucks when I saw like my first forest.
Cool. Next tweet. On March 28th, 2021, you tweeted, "Was never a fan of burgers at home until I started making smash burgers, and then I was basically fucked. Never thought I liked beef, but turns out Maylard Browning owns my idiot ass."
Jesus.
They're your words.
Yeah, they are.
Tell me about these smash burgers.
It's great. It's like the perfect way to cook a burger. I think my complaint with burgers was always like just too big. Too like it's like chewy sometimes, like even if you get them like medium rare. I always thought they had to be this like big production of like you get like a quarter pounder, half pound burger and it's like, like an inch thick and it's like on this huge brioche bun and like the Ruby Tuesday burger, like just a sense of like scale for scale's sake. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I had a smash burger and I was like, oh, that was just like a good size for something. I could eat like two of these and not feel sick, which was like very, very cool. It felt like more economical, I guess, in some sense. Like you're getting more flavor per volume or weight of meat, and just the textures were better too. I feel like there's like a lot more interesting flavors going on. With like the Maillard reaction stuff, you get like this like nice like crisp browning and sort of this like lacy texture to the meat, which I just like. I'm sure I've experienced in the past, but I was just never paying attention. Yeah, burgers rule. They're really good, especially if they're like diner style. And I think you can do it with like some like I wonder if you could like simulate a smash burger with vegetables or like with a veggie patty. I guess maybe. I'll have to look into that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Try not to eat a ton of meat, but definitely enjoying the meat I do eat now. Try to buy local and stuff like that.
What like toppings, condiments do you take on your smash burgers?
Smash burger, there's one de facto correct way. It's potato roll bun, uh, onions sliced pole to pole. So the cells rupture less. It's a little bit sweeter and like more savory, less bitter. And then you add a little bit of mayo and a slice of American cheese if you're feeling it. Sort of like a White Castle burger, basically.
Oh yeah, nice and simple.
Yeah,
Any seasonings on the meat?
salt and pepper. Uh,
Classic.
yeah, yeah. I think like the idea is that you don't want to take away from the burger, right? Like that's like the star of the show.
Hmm.
And the more stuff you put on it, the less burger there is by comparison. And if you're starting with a really small amount of meat, then you kind of don't have a lot of room to add other things, I think, in terms of like balance. And I love like a fucked up burger too, or like but that's like a different experience. I feel like in the same way that like someone can appreciate like very high quality and then also appreciate camp in terms of like a movie or something. I think the experience holds true for like food too, or like coffee. Like I love a nice like black coffee or like plain latte as like my standard drink, but like I will destroy like a double mocha frappuccino or whatever too, recognizing like what it is in comparison to coffee.
This is a barbell culinary strategy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Strong barbell strategy for sure.
Cool. Next tweet on December 24th, 2021. You tweeted, "The thing about the Wicked Witch of the West is that you can tell she's hot under the makeup. TBH, she's kind of hot with it too."
I think this holds up. Let me quickly Google a picture so I can like talk from knowledge. Yeah, so like the thing is, like I think a lot of the things that we kind of like thought of as like scary, or they thought of as scary at the time, are like kind of in fashion. I'm looking at like the hairstyle, I'm looking at like the eyebrows, I think like the green makeup. And the funny thing is actually I think she's I think she's hotter with the makeup than without. I think there's also like the allure of the unknown. Like who's behind that mask, right? Like there's like an inherent like eroticism to not knowing. I don't know. Yeah, I stand by it. I see that person and I'm like, that person is attractive. Or could be attractive. Might be attractive. Probably is attractive.
The fact that you don't know makes her attractive.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I wonder if like that's contributed to like I wonder if like people wearing masks, if people find other people more attractive when they're wearing masks. I mean, there's that trend of like covering your face with like a peace sign or something, right? When you like take a photo, or like like hiding part of your face strategically,
or hiding your face with your phone and taking a selfie, like a mirror
yeah,
selfie.
Totally. People fill in the blanks.
Well, when I read this tweet, I thought we got to play a little game here.
Okay.
So, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion. Who's hottest?
Not the lion. I think the Tin Man. The Tin Man is like classically attractive.
Cam. The Tin Man?
You think it's the Scarecrow?
That cold, hard tin body.
Oh, we're talking about like the character.
I was giving it a holistic personality plus physicality perspective.
Still Tin Man for me. I was drawn to the Tin Man. I watched this movie very recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is why I tweeted about it. I watched it on Christmas Eve, yeah, with my family, and I was definitely like out of the three, the Tin Man definitely struck me the most. As like, I think the fact that he's like very like orderly. It's like a good compliment to me personally. I think is like the thing that I was thinking about. Whereas like I feel like too much like the Scarecrow.
Oh, no thoughts?
I think we would be a bad team. Yeah, no thoughts.
See, that's what's appealing about the Scarecrow to me.
Oh, nice, like himbo energy. Yeah.
Sure.
Tell me more about your attraction to the Scarecrow.
That was about it. I mean, between the three, it's obviously Scarecrow, then Lion, then Tin Man.
Wow, man.
Is Lion last for you?
Lion's like dead last for me.
Mm-hmm.
The Scarecrow's pretty good. I'm not anti-Scarecrow. I support the Scarecrow.
He's has the I guess I'm forgetting the Tin Man personality currently, but Scarecrow's got that great energy. Tin Man's, I think, gloomy about lacking a heart. Cowardly Lion's a coward. Scarecrow's just a jolly fellow.
No, I gotta say the lacking the heart is also attractive.
Damn.
Someone cold that I have to like.
That's a bomb drop.
Someone I have to like warm up. Someone I have to like the act of oiling someone's joints to like free them from their not like sexual in like the sense of like like rubbing oil on someone's body, but just like you're freeing someone into movement, not because of like no one hung the Tin Man up. He's not like a victim. He's just like a victim of circumstance. The Scarecrow is like intentionally put up on a thing.
Was he not a victim of circumstance?
I mean, I guess in the same way every victim is a victim of circumstance.
I forgot about the joints thing. That's a game changer.
It's like a very romantic notion, and I don't know why. I could not tell you why it moves me, but
well, yeah, it's just a very obvious, like, caring act.
Yeah.
In ways that the Scarecrow and Lion don't need ongoing assistance just to, exist.
Right. There's like the Tin Man is the only one where I feel like I can fix him. Like it's literally true. It's literally true.
I can oil him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Cam, that's all I got. Besides a closing question, what are your favorite things about your Twitter experience?
My something I would love to say briefly is that I think your closing question should be, what are your favorite things about me?
Like me, myself?
Yeah, like you yourself. Because it's definitely the question I was expecting after you said that. But my favorite things about the Twitter experience are the people I've met. Shout out to you, shout out to Alodes NL, shout out to Think Againer, and Jessica and Slice and a million other people. Just a very good group of people on the internet. If I'm forgetting your name, it's because I'm just a forgetful person in the moment. There's a lot of people I care about. But yeah, just like getting to meet people, getting to reach out to people, and getting to interact with people casually. There's like this idea, I think it's also a healthy gamer idea, but like he says like the way that you meet people is by repeated, like, what is it? Basically something like repeated goal-oriented interaction. Repeated irregular goal-oriented interaction, maybe. So it's like you keep stumbling upon the same people who are doing the same things as you. And that could be like attending like a pottery class together or something. But I think Twitter is like a perfect example of that. It's sort of like the post-strat project, right? Which is like sort of this like vibes-based truth seeking. I think that is like a very fertile ground for developing friendships. It's very easy to go from being in someone's replies to like being in their DMs in terms of like a natural progression of interaction. And I think that rules. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like very grateful for the opportunity to meet so many cool people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. All right, Cam. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Yeah, Luby, thank you for hosting this podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too, man.
Yeah,
bye.
Take care.